Wanted to welcome in studio here a special guest from the Grande Ronde Hospital. We have nurse practitioner Jared Hulme in studio with us. Thank you, Jared, very much for stopping in this morning.
You're welcome, Cliff. Thanks for having me.
Well, I thought this would be a good time to talk a little bit about your background and also the title, the role of nurse practitioner. We hear it a lot these days, and some people may not be quite sure what all of the roles and responsibilities of a nurse practitioner is. So I figured, well, let's go right to the source here and ask one about some of their day-to-day activities, but also to look forward to other seasonal things that are happening here and maybe even winding down a little bit here during this time. But first off, your background. How long have you been doing this? How long have you been studying and practicing here as a nurse practitioner? And what's your background in the medical field?
So, of course, as a nurse practitioner, I started out as a nurse. Mm-hmm. That's kind of where most of us come from. And that's one of the cool things about nurse practitioners is that most of us have nursing background. You know, we've worked in the trenches, we've taken care of people, we've changed bandages, we've wiped bums. I mean, we've done a variety of things to take care of people, and that's invaluable experience and perspective on patients and on how we take care of people. My personal background, my grandfather was an OBGYN. So he was a medical doctor, and he delivered over 10,000 babies in the Boise area.
Wow.
And so that kind of set me and my family on a potential medical path. My sister, who's just about 4 years older than me, she went to nursing school, and she got her associate's degree. And then I was amazed to see how marketable she was. You know, she came out of nursing school with an associate's. She got a job right away.
Opportunities plenty?
Opportunities aplenty. And at the time, I was about a junior or senior in high school, and I decided, hey, this looks like a really good idea. I could have an associate's degree. I can have a marketable profession. And I mean, that kind of led me to enter into nursing school. So I applied, I got in, got accepted, and it was a little bit different times at that point. I think at the time it was a little bit easier for a male to get into nursing school. There were fewer men applying. That is not the case now. There are a lot more men going into nursing and some going in as second and third career options.
Oh, wow.
Just because it is such a marketable degree, and I'm not ready to say super lucrative, but there is potential to be able to make a good living.
Well, and that's what's unique about the medical field is that it's always going to be required, and it's always a necessary component here in our day-to-day lives, and there will always be demand for more nurse practitioners and nurses in general, too.
And it's getting actually more and more that way. I mean, we talk about the generation of the baby boomers. Guess what? They're getting old, and they're getting sick, and there is a need to take care of them now. And we need to fill that void, that need. And that's actually something on the national level that's been really advocated for. And there have been several documents from the National Institutes of Health recommending that we bring more physician's assistants and nurse practitioners into the medical field to fill that primary care void that is there as we have this aging population and the need for care. You know, if I'm a medical doctor and I just spent 10 years in medical school, there is a slight lack of incentive to go into primary care. That's not where...
To just limit yourself to one area?
Well, the thing is let's be honest, medical field is business still.
It is.
People get into it in part because they're really good people who want to help and want to serve people. But there's also the part of people who get into medicine because we want to take care of our families and we want to live a good lifestyle and we want to be in that kind of position. If I go to medical school, a lot of those guys come out of medical school $300,000 in debt and 10 years of study investment down. And the money is not in primary care for a medical doctor. It's in specialty. It's in surgery. It's in neurology. It's in cardiology. It's in dermatology. They're going to make a lot more money if they specialize than if they go into primary care. And so we've had less and less physicians choosing to go that route. There are some, and they choose it because they like the lifestyle and they like the model of primary care. But the vast majority, there are lots who would rather specialize. And that's where nurse practitioners and physicians' assistants can come in, and we can hopefully make that transition a little smoother for people so that they can have primary care providers in a world that doesn't facilitate that very much.
Now, do you think that that's maybe why the trend of more nurse practitioners and going to hospital or scheduling appointments here and seeing someone who can take care of all of these general areas of health? Do you see that maybe that's why that continues to grow to this day? Or do you think that soon that will be growing to that level?
I think that is a huge reason for the trend in more nurse practitioners. Also, the nursing field in general advocates for, they're increasing the educational standard. For nurses. For instance, the associate's degree, as I cited before, used to be the entry into practice. It still technically is, but they're pushing very hard
for so much more.
For bachelors. They want people to have a bachelor's degree. Many hospitals will not hire a nurse unless they have a bachelor's or are in active pursuit of a bachelor's degree. And then I'm not sure if you're familiar with the concept of nursing shortage, but it's preached up and down in the nursing field, just that we need more nurses. Mm-hmm. The biggest area of shortage in nursing is in people who have upper-level degrees who can educate nurses. So if we don't have people with PhDs and doctorates,
who will teach them?
Who can teach them? Who can actually provide the education for these nurses? And so there is a major push within the nursing field for people with advanced degrees who are either PhDs, doctors of philosophy in nursing, or doctors of nursing practice. And that's what I am. So I went through Idaho State University on top of my bachelor's. So once I got my bachelor's, I spent my first job as a nurse was for the prison system in Idaho. One of our local nurse practitioners, Cosette Turnbow, was actually a rookie nurse.
Oh, wow.
There with me. We both had our first job for the prison system.
Your paths have crossed again now.
We didn't realize that. I showed up at my interview here in La Grande, and there she was sitting across the table. So it was kind of a happy reunion, kind of put me at ease. So we both started out there. The prison system is an easy place to get jaded, by the way. But that's where we started off. And then after that, I had some applications. I worked inpatient rehabilitation for a little while for patients who had a hard time getting better. A very brief stint, about 3 months. And then I landed a job with St. Luke's Health System in Boise. And I worked medical surgical for them for about 6 years, before grad school as well as after. So that's my nursing background. And one of the plugs I like to give for nurses, like I say, they have nursing experience. They've walked the trenches. They've been there. They've seen a lot. And then if you go to grad school, you kind of see full spectrum healthcare.
Yeah.
So you understand healthcare from the top to the bottom.
And not just limited to one specific area or aspect of it. Yeah, you get it all, even the not so glamorous parts of it. And I'm sure that even, with yourself or maybe with colleagues, past and present, it's those rewards that come with it, knowing that you're providing that care, you're helping out this individual, and here you are studying so much and having quite the extensive background here to be able to provide that care.
It is good, and that's actually what probably made me stick with nursing. I told you before that that going into nursing was actually a really practical choice for me. It was based on being able to make a good living with just an associate's degree. But once I got into the school, that would not have kept me in it, because nursing school, by the way, is really terrible.
It can be challenging.
It just is.
From what I hear.
I have friends go into... I have a friend going back to school to be a nurse, and so he's actually here in La Grande, but he's going to be traveling back to Meridian and going to school at ISU's Extension campus there. When I talk to him about it, I'm just like, prepare yourself. Nursing school is terrible, but the job is worth it. Yeah. And the reason the job is worth it is if you like people. If you like people, nursing is a great job, because the school itself, the classes, the tests, the exams, they are ridiculous. There's no question like a nursing question on an exam. So I would like to give an example of a nursing exam question. You have a patient who is currently crashing on the table. What are you going to do first? Provide oxygen? Push the code button? Start chest compressions? And sometimes it's not even which one are you going to do first. Sometimes it's prioritize. Which one are you going to do first?
Yeah, you're going to be doing them all.
When in fact, you're going to do all of those things within the space of 30 seconds. And if you don't get those in order, guess what? You get that question wrong. So nursing questions are relatively ridiculous. What they are designed to do is to increase our ability to think critically through a situation.
Oh, I'm sure.
And that is the NCLEX, which is the National Certification Exam. That is what it is all about. It is about critical thinking. It's about problem solving, and it's about test strategies. Let's be honest. People who figure out how to test and how to think critically, they do well on that.
They love it. Yeah.
But nursing exams are tough. But when you go to clinical practice and you're working with people and you get to see people improve and do better, and heck, even if you get to empathize with a family who lost a loved one, or you get to suffer with a family, you're invested. You're invested at that point, and that investments pay off. You're involved. You get deep in, and it's a very rewarding profession in that way to be involved personally with people.
Well, it's good to hear that too, that it's not just a patient name and number that's being cycled through, just one of many. You're actually developing the relationships here within the community and being able to show in your practice here that there is that compassion, there is that invested interest that you're giving in part to the patient to make them feel better. And I'm sure that they realize that just as much when those relationships are being built.
That should happen. And in primary care, I think that's what attracts me. So I went into family practice as my specialty through school. You can do geriatrics, you can do pediatrics, and you can do a variety of specialties. With my degree, I could go to a specialty clinic. I chose primary care because relationship-based care is what makes nursing and this field rewarding to me. It's so ideally in my head, what I want to see happen in my career is, 30 years down the road, I stay in the same job, and guess what? I'm taking care of the grandkids of the patients that I took
that
care
you started
of
with
before, and they know me, and I'm their guy, and that's the ultimate. I mean, to be their guy, to be their person, and to be part of the family, and a small town community like this. I grew up in Weiser, Idaho. So coming to LeGrand, most recently I was in Boise. You might have guessed that because I was working for St. Luke's in Boise. But coming to LeGrand, a lot of people asked if that would be a culture shock, and I was like, nah, heck no, I'm from Weiser, Idaho. We've got a Walmart here, so we're stepping up in the world. But coming to a small town like this, I know that that's something that can happen. That people, once you're a part of the community, you're a big part of the community, and people know you, and people respect you, and people will come to you and they'll recognize you, and that's So ideally, that's what happens for me. I when I interviewed for the job, of course, they don't prefer people who are going to come and land for 5 years and then take off if they can help it. And that's not my intention. Now, I do have my own family to take care of, and I have to see to their emotional and physical needs. And so that influences my decisions now and in the future. But ideally, we are just enveloped in the society here, and we stay forever. That's kind of what I would like to see happen, and I would like to see myself turn into that for this community.
And that's a good mindset to have, because again, it's about that ultimate goal here, in helping those and continuing to see through the help that you're providing and the care that you're providing too on a regular basis to families and people here that you work and live with in the community. We're joined this morning by nurse practitioner Jared Hulme, who's here in studio with us and talking about the position of nurse practitioner and really just kind of the day-to-day stuff and some of the experiences and the background too, which is very necessary. Now, in a more timely fashion, Jared, what would you say that right now, at this point in time, spring, not exactly in full force yet, but soon. We're looking forward to some nice weather and other timely events that are happening here. Seeing as how you are invested in family and just overall health for community members, what are some good messages that you're behind and that you're actively promoting here as weather's getting more accommodating?
Allergies.
No. Be warned, the allergies are coming.
It's true. You know, my nurse always jokes with me. She came to me as a patient before she ever was my nurse, before she worked for us. And she jokes that I prescribe Flonase for everyone. It's my magical medicine for everybody. And a lot of the time when we have people come back, because sometimes what happens is somebody comes in for an illness, sinus pressure, sinusitis. They're treated with an antibiotic. The symptoms don't go away. And viruses live about, 2 weeks. That's usually the time frame that a virus will run its course in. And so if people are coming back to me after having, 2, 3 series of antibiotics and they're still having similar symptoms, what I ask them at that point is, do you get this every year? And you know what a lot of them say? They say, oh, yeah, I do get this every year, right about this time.
Around the same time.
And it's very interesting. So I think allergies fly under the radar, and people are sometimes very surprised at how sick allergies can make you, but they can feel just like a sinus infection, and they can feel just like a cold, and they can mimic a lot of different illnesses. So this time of year, I advocate for that.
And what about the actual flu season? I mean, we had a pretty rough run here these past few months, but are we seeing signs of maybe that coming to a close now?
I'm hopeful that is the case. We did have a rough flu season. We ran out of our flu swabs in the clinic because we were testing so much for it. So flu season was rough. Flu season almost always is rough.
Yeah.
I do absolutely advocate for the flu shot. I know that people have very differing views on that and whether or not they should have it. If it can offer any protection to me at all, flu kills. I mean, if you're in the category of people who do die of it, if you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, most likely you're going to weather the flu okay. If you're 70 or above and catch the flu, or if you're a little kid and catch the flu,
It can be life-threatening.
you can land in the ICU.
Immediately,
Most of St. Luke's hospital beds in the ICU for the last few years during flu season, about half of the ICU beds are filled with flu patients, influenza. And we've got there's a trend in the world towards anti-vaxxing movement, anti-vaccinations, and there was a research article that came out some years ago citing that components of, I believe it was the MMR, were potentially bringing about autism in people. That research has since been completely refuted. The medical doctor who ran the research lost his license because it was kind of an unethical study. It wasn't performed under really good conditions, and it has created havoc in the medical world because of that anti-vaxxing movement. We've had a rebound in pertussis in Idaho and Oregon, which is whooping cough.
Yeah.
We didn't used to hardly get pertussis at all. But when you take away the immunizations that have created a society where these illnesses are not present, it's come back.
Yeah, hurting more than helping.
And we've had mumps has come back here. We've had some mumps cases. I haven't heard of any measles, but I mean, we're talking diseases that for a long time have caused a lot of problems. And we live in a country and a society where we are very, very safe from these diseases overall. But how did we get there? We got there because of vaccines and immunizations. That is why we are safe, is because for generations, Americans have been vaccinated and protected against these diseases. And so I personally feel it's unethical to withhold a vaccine from my children, because I'm banking on myself being safe because people before me have paid the price and have been willing to do that, have been willing to vaccinate.
And especially since you're seeing the after effects of what flus and colds and some of these other diseases too can really cause, and the damage and how soon they can affect our bodies, which are frail things to begin with.
Well, and I had the benefit. So I had the opportunity to go and serve a mission for my church in India for a couple years.
Oh, wow.
And so I have exposure there. And, polio. I mean, we how many cases of polio have I seen in the United States? None. I've never seen polio, but I've seen the aftermath of polio in India.
Oh, yeah.
And it is a terrible, terrible disease. I mean, we talk about stroke as being a terrible thing. Polio has the same effect. I mean, people are crippled permanently for life because they got polio. And we are safe. We're safe. So, yes, I do see both sides of that. And I strongly advocate for vaccinations. I think they are very important to our society, and we are safe because of them.
Well, again, we're joined this morning by nurse practitioner Jared Hulme, who is here in studio with us and talking about background and some of these important topics here. And Jared, we probably could do another show and a half here, just kind of expanding upon these topics. But I really appreciate your time coming in, kind of explaining the role of a nurse practitioner and some of the understanding as far as the fundamentals when it comes to what your goals are, what you strive to do here in a local community. And I'm sure it's different in more of the urban areas compared to the rural settings, but we'll have to have you again come in sometime to discuss some of those differences and really just share with our audience here about what it is that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis here, all to just better the health and lives here of community members.
I would love to be back. It's been great to be in studio with you today. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, thank you, Jared, very much here from the Grande Ronde Hospital. Nurse practitioner in studio with us.